Good morning, everybody. This is Kate Lambert-Lee from MWR. I'll be filling in for Lisa today. If anybody would like the slides for today's presentation, email us at mwrbattlecreek@dla.mil. And we're just waiting for Adam to jump on, and we will be starting.
Kate, this is David. I think we could get started unless you want to wait for a little bit more. Adam can jump on whenever he is available. Just so we get this ball rolling.
Yeah, he's coming right on. And if you would like to start, I will make you presenter. Are you also in or just calling in?
Just calling in. You'll have to be the presenter.
Okay. Okay. And can you see the slides?
Yep.
Okay. And it looks like Adam's here. Adam, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I have made you the presenter.
Okay.
All right. So Adam, I'm just going to get started like normal. Just jump in whenever you feel the opportune moment.
Okay.
Again, this is David Potter, and the other voice you heard was Adam Beam. We want to thank Kate for helping set this up today as Lisa's out. So today we were kind of thinking about what topics we should talk about, and I know a couple times we've talked about bee food and what types of pollen. Some people talked about planting flowers, which is always a good thing. But what I thought about doing too is just gathering information, which you can go on any Google site easily and find what types of things honeybees use to pollinate. So I just thought of that, like even as we go through the slides, you'll see some of the things that you might not think of as being the super high pollen producers, but they're pretty good size. All right, so the first slide, again, is just myself and Adam. And Lisa, who she won't ever let us put her name on here, is normally someone I would always try to squeeze in there, but she always catches it and takes it off. But what we have here is just a list of things. Adam, if you change the slide 2, please. All right, so I put a picture of a dandelion here, something that pops out early spring. I know many people think they're a big nuisance in the yard, but this is one of the first sources that pop out in the spring that bees can gather honey from, or not honey, excuse me, pollen. They don't gather honey; they make honey. So yeah, so like as you think, whenever stuff starts to sprout in the spring, whether it's tree buds, trees that have flowers once they bud, before they turn to leaves, or a flowering plant, all of those things produce pollen. So pretty much anything that produces pollen can help honeybees. And what's kind of cool about it is you say you have a field of, let's say, alfalfa or certain types of alfalfa. You can almost say that your honeybees have that. Some people say that they can taste the main food source of the honeybees, which I think is pretty cool. Because say you wanted something with cherry blossoms, obviously you would need to have your bees around cherry blossoms and cherry trees, which I think is pretty cool. How the pollen that they are able to extract influences the flavoring of the honey. Yeah. So I'm ready for slide 3, please. All right. And on this slide right here, I just wanted to show you the different types of things. Like some things, like this would be a flower that my wife would have in her garden or in our landscaping. Very beautiful flowers. A lot of times, wherever there's any beautiful flower, the honeybees are attracted. They enjoy colored things. Obviously, the brighter they are, the easier it is to attract. And I know we've said this in the past, but honeybees will fly up to 3 miles for a food source they find. So it's kind of cool. Say you plant stuff right outside the box and they don't like it, or the hive, excuse me, they won't use it if they don't want to. And once they find a spot, I feel they just keep coming back till that spot is used up, and then they find another spot. So when they do find a spot, they will like mark it, and then when they go back to the hive, they'll come back, they'll dispatch what they have, and they'll go right back to the spots they were just at. So it's kind of cool how they'll do that. So, like I said, beautiful things like your yard decorations and landscaping are many times used for bees for pollination, which also helps your flowers to stay vibrant longer, to produce more flowers. If you have a garden, it strongly helps your plants grow better because of the pollination and cross pollination that they are able to do. And just a list of goes on and on for many things that the honeybees have assisted us with without us really even thinking about it. Next slide, please. All right. So again, I know we talked about already, like flowering trees, but many of these things, to me, I don't have any of these in my yard, but these are really beautiful trees. They have great, really big blossoms. And just want to give you another instance, like if there's anything sprouting out with flowers or any flower at all, pretty much, there can be some pollen produced. So obviously pollen is how and why that flower produced anyways. So honeybees can just load up on those things, and even things like oak trees and all trees that have, like I said, that have the flower buds or leaf buds will produce some pollen, and bees can gather honey from that, or pollen from that, excuse me. I guess I got honey on the brain today. I think I'm ready for the next slide. All right. So what I have here is a few different types of clover. I know the one on the bottom left is just a white clover, and the one on the top is called a crimson red clover, which is my favorite because I think they're the prettiest looking clover there is. And bees love this. I plant this all around my hives, but bees just love it. And it's kind of cool because you'll see the crimson red clover can get like 3 inches tall, 2.5 to 3 inches tall, just the head, the big red vibrant. And you can see 2 or 3 honeybees on it at a time. So it's kind of cool to be out there to watch them do their work. And also the little clover on the bottom left, I know I pretty occasionally have that sprout up in my yard. And I have a older beekeeper friend of mine, and whenever you go to his yard, he mows circles around that to make sure his honeybees can still get to that without it getting trimmed off, which I think is kind of funny when you go to his yard because he'll have patches all over his yard. And the cool thing about most clovers is if you cut it, it grows right back. So you're not hurting it by cutting it, but know that bees have to have the head of the flower to use it. So it's just something to keep in mind if you want to help support bees. If you see them on there, more than likely they're using it. All right, next slide, please. All right. So what I have here is what we all have, because we all live in the state of Michigan, are clover fields and alfalfa fields. So the picture on the left is alfalfa, which is used for like dairy farms, not horses so much because they need grass more than alfalfas, but there's fields and fields of this everywhere. So what's cool about these things that are used, such as this corn rows on the right or soybean plants, they produce a flower as well. So that means that there's pollen that the bees can use to gather pollen for their hive. And just about any plant you think of has a flower at some point in time, which then in turn has pollen, so the bees can continue to use that. Trying to look over my notes real quick, see if I have anything else. I think that's all I got. Adam, I think this is over to you now, bud.
All right. Thanks, Dave. So what I did for this presentation was I did a little research like David did, and really what I want to present here are native pollinators in Michigan. Now, if you go, one of the websites at the end here, we'll get to it. If you go out to their website, you can pick your state. So if you live in Washington State, for example, you can go there and find your native pollinators. And these are all seeds. So this would be something that um, if you get hardcore into beekeeping, you can register with different farm agencies like USDA, NRCS. Where's my notes? You can get your MEAP certification. Here in Michigan, we have a Michigan Environmental. Basically, you can certify your farm to be organic. It's pretty tough to do, but I have seen a couple here in the Battle Creek area that are. So what we have here on the left is wild bergamot, and just as David was showing you, this is the flower itself, the bush, if you will, and then in lower you have an identifier is what it is. So that way, if you were to walk out into the woods or you're walking through your yard and you're like, what is that? Which happened to me with star thistle. I did not put a picture of that on here. But this is, each one of these, there's a scientific name for it. Not the petals, but the flower itself carries nectar. And nectar is the fuel for bee flight. So while they're in there, they are actually also, they're kind of doing two things at once. They're in each of these petals. They stick their tongue down in there. They get all the good stuff. They're fueling up for their next, probably 3-mile flight or thereabout. And they're also gathering pollen, and they feed that to the larvae that are inside the hive. So we'll just move on here. Here's some goldenrod. This specifically is stiff goldenrod. And here's what it looks like close up. I know when I first moved to my property, it was like, is that mustard or what is that? And I ended up having to download a picture app and took a picture of it, and it was goldenrod. And I'm like, well, that's staying. So again, here is purple prairie clover. This is also native to Michigan in some spots, not every spot, but you can see it as a bush and as it's starting to flower. So each one of these white, I'm going to call them a stem, and I'm butchering the scientific stuff here, but this part of the flower contains the nectar, and the bees will fly up in there and they will gather that nectar. Black-eyed Susan, you're probably wondering where they gather nectar and pollen from. Each one of those, the black eye of the Susan, is thousands of the actual flower. What you look at is the petals, which it makes up part of the flower, but each one of those has thousands of these little guys out here that the bees can collect the nectar and the pollen from. I just thought about this, David. I didn't put a picture on here of the bee pollen sacs. So, yeah, I'll have to remember that. Mountain mint is another one. Like David was also saying, clovers galore, and that's because not only is it sweet, but there's not just a one time, like your lilies and stuff aren't really, they do have a lot of pollen, but they're not heavy in nectar. So granted, you'll see a bumblebee or a honeybee or whatever floating to your lilies or tulips or whatever, but they're not really good nectar producers, if that makes sense. So they're going to these clovers and these other types of flowers that have hundreds of opportunities to gather nectar from, so they can fuel themselves. So Ladino, the white clover, you have your alfalfa, your red clover. There's just a bunch here that bees can pollinate, and they can energize themselves for flight. So the resources that are really helpful. And because we're in the state of Michigan, Michigan State University is a huge agricultural college. They are also the place where I learned about beekeeping through a program called Heroes to Hives, and it's an extension program from MSU. So MSU has this is kind of their main website, the pollinators.msu.edu. And if you go in there, you can find links to like the Xerxes Society. Um, Down here at the bottom, you can become a pollinator champion. Basically, you don't want to have bees, or you're not into beekeeping, but you want to do something for bees. There's pollinator planting, resources for growers, like your nurseries and fresh cut flower folks, and there's resources for beekeepers. If you can, I don't know if you can or not, but jot these down. The Michigan pollinators.msu.edu is your main page, and each one of these, like the beekeepers, growers, pollinating, and the champions bees, are all tabs you can click on. It is a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, to go in there and just kind of surf around. The last bit here is Pheasants Forever. This is the website you can go to and pick what state you live in, and you can buy seed that is native to your state. So, for example, I'm on a different computer, but they have a Michigan pollinator seed that is $140 an acre, and in green they show how many acres are available. So if you had 10 acres and you want to turn an acre of that piece of property into a native pollinator plot, basically, it'd be $140 an acre. Down from that, you can buy that same mixture without grasses. So you wouldn't get your little blue stem or your prairie June grass or side oats grandma. It's strictly fords. And that's $114 an acre. You can do native wildflower honeybee interseeding. So that's cheaper. That's $27. And that is, let me just click on that real quick. Give me a second. That's just probably a dozen varieties of wildflowers. I don't see any grass in there. So that's just a dozen varieties of wildflowers, and that's $27 an acre. You can buy 0.5 acres if you want to. If you just have an empty flower bed, you don't know what to put in there, put down good soil, and you can throw these seeds in there and produce. The last one they have is the legume honeybee interseeding, and it's $15 an acre. Excuse me, and that is only mountain mint, narrow-leaf mountain mint, alfalfa, and the 3 clovers: Ladino, white, red, and like a pinkish clover. Let me see here. If corn is GMO, yeah, Alex, that is. So not all corn can be pollinated. It's your heritage corns that are going to be pollinated. So and David can expound on this if he wants to. The corn that is genetically produced is not able to be pollinated. That's why we don't have here in Michigan. Back when I I was growing up, for a summer you could go and detassel corn. Well, now they don't have corn in high school. You could go and detassel corn for nothing. It was hard work for a lot of money. Same with the soybeans. A lot of the soybeans, if they're genetically produced, they're not going to be able to be pollinated as well. That's going to be more of your, I think most, I'm not saying all, most soybeans are genetically modified. But I will say that our cherry trees in Michigan, our blueberries are two big crops that, just like in California, Alex, you probably know this, in California it's the almonds. So Michigan's almond bloom is the cherries and blueberries. And they need pollinators, or else it doesn't happen. You know, we don't get those big blueberries that we all like. So back to what I was saying. If I'm going to go here to Washington State real quick on Pheasants Forever, and here we have Washington seed, and you can get a pollinator mix for $73 an acre. You can get there's a fire break. There's a monarch pollinator mix. No. Yeah. So, and I just Googled Pheasants Forever only because that's one of the things I was looking into for my farm, was to do something with the property. So are there any other questions, Alex? Did I answer yours? Yeah, looks like it. Anybody else have any questions in the chat, on the phone? I don't hear any.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I just heard you say you didn't hear any.
Nope, I did not hear anything. For as far as questions went. All right. Well, if there's not anything that I can answer, or David can help out answer, first Friday of every month we're going to be doing this.
Yep. Could everybody please make sure they send their email address to either Lisa or Kate, excuse me, because we use that to make sure we can get you guys involved with what you want. So, sorry to cut you off, Adam.
No.
Please, we need input on what you guys want to cover, because if it doesn't have value, we don't need to use our time or your time to cover something you don't care about. So it is coming up time to almost start your orders for bees if you are interested, though.
Oh yeah, good point.
Also, this is Kate. If you do miss one of the sessions, we do put them online with the MWR videos, so you can catch up on any of the ones if you're just joining in after the start.
Perfect.